Elevate your sports betting game with DGen Gang Sports Discord. Join their community of expert bettors for daily tips, real-time analysis, and an exclusive winning playbook available 24/7. Their seasoned handicappers cover football, basketball, baseball, and soccer, providing deep dives into stats and exclusive picks. Enjoy a 7-day free trial and a 75% discount on your first month by using the code WINTERSALE. That's all one word. Don't leave success to chance. Redefine the game with them at wap.com/dgen-gang. It's not just betting, it's winning with the DGen Gang. Again, that's wap.com/DEGEN-gang.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
What's going on, everybody? Guys and girls, welcome back to another edition of the SmackDown review right here on the WWE Podcast. As always, I am one of the hosts of the show, Michael Ritter. You can find me on X or on Instagram at MichaelRitter5, and also one of the hosts of the Football Function Podcast, available on all your podcasting platforms, including on Patreon if you prefer an ad-free experience. The episode that I'm going to be breaking down today, obviously it aired on January 5th, 2023 from the Rogers Arena in British Columbia, Canada. Shout out to DJ Kuzmo for the location breakdown per usual. And DJ also nailed it right on the head whenever he said that this episode was going to have a little bit of a pay-per-view feel to it, because I personally feel like it did. It lacked the moving promos. Nobody cut a long promo. There wasn't a whole lot of mic time in that department. We got a little bit of stuff from a lot of people, right? People made their declarations, or I guess their announcement that they're entering the Royal Rumble. We got a little bit of teases from certain wrestlers, and even like guys like Paul Heyman, who addressed all of Roman Reigns' potential challengers. But, you know, guys like Logan Paul got on the microphone as well. So there were opportunities for promos to be cut, but I don't feel like the episode was focused on that. I think it was more so focused on delivering great matches that gave us contenders and furtherment into certain storylines, including a potential butting heads that we're going to see going forward between the Bloodline, more specifically Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman, with General Manager Nick Aldis. And that's something that I'm certainly going to enjoy. It's just a little bit different. We don't have two cookie cutter general managers where they're both clearly, I guess, manipulative. Like Eric Bischoff was somewhat of a heel general manager, not somewhat. He was without a doubt a heel general manager. And you've had guys like Paul Heyman who have been that same version of a general manager. And then you have people like Teddy Long. You have people like Adam Pearce, who really is the most mutual, I guess, or fair general manager that I've seen in quite some time. But Nick Aldis clearly leans towards the baby faces. He doesn't put up with any heels nonsense. And that is a little bit of a breath of fresh air from the general manager position. So we will get into everything that happened on SmackDown. Obviously, some great stuff to talk about. First and foremost, I wanted to talk about what happened on Monday Night Raw. Now, I was in OKC for this past Monday. I was in town for a Thunder versus Celtics game. The Celtics lost, so that really wasn't the best outcome. But as far as the Monday Night Raw that took place while I was there at my hotel room, that outcome is probably as good as it could have possibly been if you are one of the fans who want to see The Rock make his inevitable return, which he did. So did Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal came out, and he did what he was supposed to do in that segment. But the segment was mainly about The Rock coming out and teasing it at first, and then ultimately giving us what we want, which is the he didn't name drop Roman Reigns specifically, but he said, take a seat at the head of the table. And The crowd erupted. The internet erupted. I feel like a lot of people got some vindication that have been pounding the table for this. You know, they really want to see The Rock versus Roman. How could you not? Rock versus Roman is everything that WrestleMania 40 should be about. Like WrestleMania XL, just for a split second here, it's going to be a monumental moment in the wrestling landscape, in the timeline. Whenever you're thinking back over the years and you're talking about all these WrestleManias, I think WrestleMania 40 is going to be one that you mentioned pretty quick, because I think it's catching WWE at a time where it's red hot, the hottest it's been in arguably a decade plus. This is going to be a historic number when you just look at WrestleMania 40. I feel like, I mean, the way that the NFL does it is whenever they have a milestone Super Bowl, right? Like Super Bowl 40. They brought out every single former Super Bowl MVP. Same thing as Super Bowl 50 in Santa Clara, California. So I think that with WrestleMania 40, you should do something a little bit more than just a traditional Hall of Fame ceremony where you honor the past eras. I feel like at WrestleMania 40, there needs to be more of an acknowledgement of past WrestleManias, whether you just bring out certain wrestlers and say, have them wave to the crowd, and at the bottom of the screen, you could just put some of their WrestleMania highlights. Like main evented WrestleMania 28, main evented WrestleMania 14. You could do certain things with so many different Hall of Famers that would probably be more than willing to make an appearance in Philadelphia at WrestleMania 40. And I know so many people that are going to be there. Like a lot of people in the Discord. Our buddy Howard Poole is going to be there, amongst many others. And as someone who went to WrestleMania 38, my only WrestleMania I've been to, and we'll see. I plan on going again at some point. I have to. But that one was really meaningful. And this one should blow that one out of the water. Like it really should. Because, honestly, when I hang my hat on, when I think about WrestleMania 38, the one that I was in attendance for, I think I got to see Stone Cold Steve Austin wrestle his first match in almost 20 years. Like that was a beautiful thing, So comparing that to what we could possibly see this year, which is Roman Reigns versus The Rock in the main event, that's a very highly anticipated matchup. You could also see something like CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. I've seen people, drop that video. I think Matt is actually someone who tweeted it. If you want to go follow him at wrestling_audio, he tweeted the link to the video of Jim Ross sitting between CM Punk and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and they were talking about WWE 13, which came out at the time. It was a video game, and they were just hyping it up, talking about the different generations you're allowed to do. They were specifically talking about the prospects of Stone Cold Steve Austin versus CM Punk and what that would be like. And it's a hell of a video. It's without a doubt, if this match ever happens, and now it's more possible than it's ever been, if this match ever happened, then they would without a doubt call back to this. They would show that video. They would show that interaction. It would probably get another 5 million views just because people are going to be going back. People that weren't watching wrestling at the time are going to be going back to that video to get a little bit of a taste. And obviously CM Punk has his sights set on Seth Rollins and, winning the Royal Rumble, all that good stuff. But for Stone Cold Steve Austin and that program to be a possibility, like, give me a WrestleMania with The Rock and Stone Cold both wrestling. When was the last time we saw that? WrestleMania 19? I think it was, right? Could have been. The last time that we saw The Rock and Stone Cold both wrestle on the same WrestleMania card. So, clearly, it's multiple decades in the making that you give some of the fans what they want. Yes, we've gotten Undertaker matches. We've gotten Edge matches. We've seen Goldberg come back. We've seen Triple H wrestle even as recent as WrestleMania 35? Whenever it was that he wrestled Batista. We've seen multiple legends come out and, put on matches. Even Kurt Angle was having matches in 2016, 2018, whenever it was. Probably even more recent. I don't know the dates off the top of my head, but Kurt Angle wrestled not that long ago. Clearly his days of wrestling are behind him now. But it was just 5 years ago that we were seeing Kurt Angle in the ring. So seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock on the same card make this WrestleMania so appealing, and it's going to make so many people who just love the Attitude Era and who don't watch wrestling because they don't know the wrestlers these days, they're not familiar with the current product. it'll bring a lot of people back. And, who knows? I mean, it happened to me, right? Like, I mean, I didn't come back because of a legend, but as someone who stopped watching wrestling and just so happened to watch the 2015 Royal Rumble, and now here I am, you fast forward 8 years later, and I've already been hosting my own podcast for over 3 years now, a wrestling podcast, so you never know what could happen by getting a diehard fan, getting their eyeballs back on the product. You could, reignite that fire. And sometimes fires are hard to put out, and that's pretty much what's happened with me. Now it's to the point to where, like, my girlfriend's son, who I live with, is a diehard wrestling fan. And now, that passion is being passed down where he's only been collecting wrestlers, wrestling action figures for a little bit over 5 months. And he already has well over 50. I mean, he has pretty much anybody you could think of that's on the current roster. There's a couple that, are hard to find because we like to scope, right? We like to go to Targets, Walmarts. Even in OKC, we went to like 10 Walmarts and he came back with 12 action figures because that's something that we do as like a wrestling family bonding experience. You go scope. That's what we call it, which is the same thing as like a toy hunt. You go to various Walmarts, you try to look for figures that you don't have, ones that you've seen online. Of course, if you can't find it, you eventually just have to take the L, go to eBay, go to, obviously, Ringside Collectibles, or just Mattel. You can go to several different places to buy whatever action figures you want online, but I personally enjoy the thrill of finding it on the shelf. But the only reason why I say that is because it's crazy what could happen just by simply getting your eyeballs back on wrestling. It's like a butterfly effect. It kind of changes the trajectory of what you're doing. And I would love for that to happen with WrestleMania 40. Like, people are going to be tuning in that haven't seen wrestling in a very long time. And I think with how hot the product is and with what they have at their hands right now, there's a good possibility that they could really make this one of the most memorable WrestleManias of all time. And it starts with what got me on that little bit of a tangent, or not even a tangent, that was just a little bit of like a sidebar there, was The Rock. The Rock making his return. And I think that is what this WrestleMania needs to be built around, him and Roman Reigns. I'm someone who wanted to see Cody Rhodes win at WrestleMania 39. The timing, I feel like, was perfect. And the only argument that people had to make at the time was, Roman Reigns is so close to 1,000 days. Okay, he's past 1,000 days. Now what? Are we going for the all-time record? Are we just kind of going to continue to inflate that number? Because think about it, guys. Are you not tired of Roman Reigns not being there regularly? Now, I know he was at this episode of SmackDown, the one that we're about to break down right now. But for the most part, how many days in between title defenses does he have? He has probably one title defense every 100 days. So it really takes a little bit of the flair out of that streak, out of that reign. I know that probably, it was kind of similar in the old days. I wasn't around for Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino and all those other long streaks that were going on. But I can tell you that this Roman Reigns streak, if you show a video package of all of his wins, it's going to be like, whoa, that was such an impressive run, very dominant. But if you actually add some context to it, if you actually throw the days in there in between the reigns or in between the defenses, I think, just me personally, my subjective opinion, that it does make the reign itself feel a little bit like, okay, like it's inflated. I'm not saying that it's not entertaining and I didn't enjoy this Roman Reigns streak, but at the same time, I can call a spade and say, like, come on, like, I have eyes, and I obviously know that the only reason why Roman Reigns has his championship number as high as what it is because he goes years pretty much with only having like 5 or 6 matches. Like, it's actually insane when you think about how far he goes. So that's the only reason why they didn't pull the trigger on Cody Rhodes. They wanted to continue this streak. Well, congratulations, you did it. I personally feel like that ruined that moment. Yes, Cody Rhodes can finish the story. He can. But what is his story? Let's think about it. Was his story to beat Roman Reigns? Or was his story to be a world heavyweight champion, to be a world champion in WWE? He doesn't have to finish his story now. It doesn't. Like, yes, it would have been nice at WrestleMania 39. Him winning the Rumble, I felt like the timing was perfect. It was time to move on to have a new champion. WWE didn't agree. They didn't make the call, and a lot of fans predicted that was going to happen and that Roman Reigns was going to retain. It's exactly what happened. And now people are just saying, well, Cody needs to finish the story. Yeah, he needs to finish the story, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be right now because his story can still be finished just by him winning a championship. It doesn't matter if it's at WrestleMania 40. It doesn't matter if it's against Roman Reigns or against Seth Rollins, against Drew McIntyre, even The Rock. I think Cody Rhodes just needs a championship victory, a WWE championship victory to secure that story being complete. Whereas this story with The Rock and Roman Reigns, The Rock isn't going, think about how hard it was to actually get this to happen, to actually have it possible. Rock versus Roman. And just a little bit of a sidebar, I know that there's been some speculation. Well, possibly, Roman Reigns could defend the championship at Elimination Chamber in Australia against The Rock. Money talks, right? Like the people there in Australia could say, no, we will give you just a blank check to have that match here take place in Australia. That's the only reason why that's the only, outcome that I would say logistically, okay, money talks. So clearly they're going to take that blank check and set themselves up for the future. But if you're talking about storyline wise, go back and look at that clip on Young Rock. He said it himself. That's a match that could only happen at WrestleMania. Come on, guys. The Rock versus Roman Reigns, it shouldn't. It should not happen anywhere outside of WrestleMania. I personally don't think that you could get The Rock to come back for a match on SummerSlam, Survivor Series, any of the other Big Four pay-per-views. It's WrestleMania or bust, much less a non-Big Four pay-per-view, just a random Elimination Chamber pay-per-view on the way to the biggest WrestleMania that we've seen in such a long time. No. The Rock, if he's going to lace them up, if he's going to have a match, I personally feel like it's WrestleMania or bust, and it's Roman Reigns or bust. So just do the obvious. Who cares, what you got to sacrifice at this point? We need Rock versus Roman. The title doesn't need to be on the line, so that's why we can still get Cody versus Roman. The second night of WrestleMania, if they're going to have WrestleMania be 2 nights, utilize your champion. Say, okay, the first match is for the Ula Fala. It's for that right to be considered the head of the table, the tribal chief. I'm sure that they can come up with a catchy name for it that would make that match a hell of a match. Or you could put the title on the line and still have Roman Reigns win the match. But still, I think that no matter what, if you were to have the title not be on the line for WrestleMania Night 1, Rock versus Roman, whoever wins, wins. We'll address that later. Night 2, if Cody were to win the Royal Rumble for the second year in a row and he challenged Roman Reigns again, you could do that night 2 of WrestleMania and then, have Roman do double duty and still end up one way or another getting CM Punk versus Seth Rollins for that World Heavyweight Championship. So there are possible avenues where WWE can still hit multiple home runs. This is going to be a great WrestleMania one way or the other, no matter how you slice it. So just buckle up. And I just wanted to give my quick thoughts on The Rock returning. I think it's going to be money. I think it's a huge step in the right direction to finally getting the main event or just, a match on the WrestleMania card that includes Roman Reigns versus The Rock. But let's go ahead and get into this episode of SmackDown, shall we? Because at the end of this episode, per usual, Stack 'em Up Saturday, there was a return of a tag team on this episode of SmackDown that we'll talk about as we're getting into it. And it looks like they're going to be forming a faction with Karrion Kross. So that right there made me think WWE has quite a bit of factions right now when you think about it that are just, whether they're starting, they're just getting their feet wet, or they're already established. And I just kind of wanted to go through and rank some of the current factions right now in the WWE. But that is going to be at the end of the episode. This next portion of the show is going to be the SmackDown review section. So we are going to actually get through what happened here on this episode of SmackDown. Like I mentioned earlier, it aired on January 5th, 2023 from the Rogers Arena in British Columbia. And not a lot of promos. A lot of, your occasional video package. That probably took up about 1/4 of the show. When you look at video package / commercials, about 1/4, and the rest was mainly matches and the very small sprinkled in promo that was pretty much just people saying what they had to say very quickly, not going too much into detail. So let's talk about some of the smaller things before we get to the actual main event and the things that involved the bloodline. We'll start off with Kevin Owens getting a win over Santos Escobar. Obviously got that win with the stunner. Logan Paul was a guest on commentary, and also before the match even began, we saw Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo, took me a little bit to recall the names, get attacked by Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde, the former tag team partners of Santos Escobar. So that evened the playing field. Obviously, Santos is going to have those guys in his corner at first, which is going to give him the clear edge over Kevin Owens. But because the former members of the LDF and also LWO, they come out and even the odds, so it ends up being Kevin Owens versus Santos one-on-one. And Kevin Owens gets the win to earn a United States Championship match against Logan Paul at the Royal Rumble. And obviously, I mentioned Logan Paul being on commentary. After this match is over, he stepped inside the ring talking you-know-what about Kevin Owens and pointing out that, you're dripping in sweat right now, number one, and I haven't even broken a single drip of sweat. And I've been United States champion for 62 days. Now it's 63, I believe, since this is the Saturday that I'm recording this. And he goes on to say, and also, dude, you're Canadian, which they're in Canadian, so he takes a shot at the local sports team, which is always a nice little quick way to get some heat. And he tells Kevin Owens, you're Canadian. Why are you going to, assume that you can be the United States champion, which is laughable considering that there's a lot of professional wrestlers that are Canadian who have already held that championship. Probably some of the best United States champions of all time are from Canada. So I thought that was just, a clear little obvious shot. He wanted to get some quick heat. Had no merit, had no legs to stand on, obviously. If you're Canadian, if you're Mexican, if you're African, Australian, you can win the United States champion. Or the United States championship. I just wanted to go ahead and clarify that, obviously, which is already pretty obvious. It's just Logan Paul being an a-hole and trying to get as much heat as he possibly can, and that's honestly what makes him as good as he is the fact that when he picks up the microphone, he says things that make you feel a certain way. It's nothing about Logan Paul makes you indifferent. You're usually either one way or the other, and I think that he's going to be a pretty good asset for the company. But after he, got to run in his mouth a little bit, Kevin Owens actually gave him a little bit of a little club, a little punch in the face with his cast hand. So Logan Paul does get dropped, and he finds out who his new opponent's going to be. That was the beauty of this episode of SmackDown. We got contenders announced. We know who the championship matches are going to be at Royal Rumble, and then obviously we also got championship matches here on SmackDown, which is what happened with the WWE Championship. Io Sky defending it against Michin, and this match came from Michin pinning Io Sky whenever they had their Holiday Havoc match, I believe is what it was called on SmackDown a few weeks ago. So she got the pin doing just, a senton type looking thing through the table on Io Sky, pinned the champ. I thought that was meaningful, so I wanted to see how she fared here in this match against the champion one-on-one. And Io Sky already knows, she doesn't need Damage Control to come out and interfere. Anytime that Damage Control is interfered, think about it. Most of the time, it's Bayley going against the advice from her Damage Control members and disobeying them. And whenever they say, no, Bayley, we don't need you to come out to the ring tonight, and she'll go out there and do it anyways. Now, obviously, they've cheated time and time again in the past. But I feel like with Io Sky in championship matches, she's more than willing to keep her partners in the back and go out and defend her championship fair and square, which you do have to give her credit for. That's not always what heels do. Heels usually lean towards the rule breaking and, taking the path with least resistance. They want the easiest route to defending their championship, which is why sometimes you'll see a champion grab their belt and try to walk out and just get counted out. So they'll lose the match but not lose their championship, and the babyface will have to go out there and, just bring them back to the ring. Triple H was very famous for doing that during his runs as the World Heavyweight Champion. But Io Sky is always more than willing to, put her money where her mouth is and defend her championship straight up. So I always, respected that about her. And she does hit her signature moonsaults to defend this championship successfully against Michin, getting the win. Michin took a rough bump, though, I will say, just diving through the ropes to the outside. So it was obviously over a 6-foot drop right on her face. Not literally on her face, but that's called a face bump whenever you're facing forward and you don't take a back bump, which is on your back. So when you drop on your chest or your torso, your stomach, that's called a face bump. And that's exactly what Michin did, doing a suicide dive through the top two ropes, and that was just a nice little aesthetic. It was a good visual to see to let you know this was a hard-hitting match, which isn't always the case when you get a women's match, especially on free TV on SmackDown. I think Michin and Io Sky both delivered, and they gave us a pretty good match here. What I alluded to earlier in the show was the return of a tag team. And that tag team is the Authors of Pain. And also Paul Ellering, who both of, AOP and Paul have not been in WWE. They haven't been seen in WWE since 2020. So it's been well over 3 years. And this return, I feel like, especially if they're going to be here on SmackDown, is a phenomenal addition. I am pro genuine tag teams. I love that. That's why I liked, what are their names? Oh, I can't remember. It's the Cash Wheeler, right? Like, they're in AEW right now, but they used to be in the WWE, and I cannot remember their name for the life of me. But they embraced the art of tag team wrestling, and I genuinely love that. Like, look at Pretty Deadly. You can't see one of those guys having a single career right now because they are embracing, their role as a tag team. Heavy Machinery, whenever they were matching, they had just a gimmick, a specific gimmick. Even American Alpha, which I felt like as a tag team that had Hall of Fame written all over them. It didn't pan out. Clearly, Gable still doing his thing as an in-ring competitor. And Jason Jordan backstage as a producer and just, a WWE quote-unquote official or whatever his role is back there. It didn't work out for them as a tag team, but I always like whenever wrestlers embrace it. Like, yes, we've seen multiple tag teams come together, 2 singles wrestlers, and have a great run together. Look at The Bar with Sheamus and Cesaro. Look at Team Rated RKO with Edge and Randy Orton. But if you're asking me, I've always, gravitated a little bit more towards the true tag teams. And that's what Authors of Pain are. They're a great tag team whenever they just are wrecking havoc across an entire locker room. But this whole thing started with Bobby Lashley coming to the ring and declaring that he's entering the Royal Rumble. He came out with, obviously, the Street Profits, and I don't know the name of that group. We're going to talk about them here in a little bit when we talk about the factions. It would be nice to get a name for that group. But as they're talking, as soon as he makes his declaration for the Royal Rumble, Karrion Kross comes out with Scarlett, and then we see Paul Ellering, and then that's kind of what let me know, wait a minute, what is going to happen here? Bam, Authors of Pain attack the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley from behind. Here comes Karrion Kross. It's pretty much a 3-on-3 beatdown. Advantage, Authors of Pain and Karrion Kross. They do their damnedest to this, this unnamed group that is Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits. But the shirt that Kross was wearing said The Final Prayer. Now, I don't know if that's their group name, if that's, just a marketing slogan or something like that. I don't know exactly what the deal is, but so far that's what I'm going to call them, The Final Prayer, or at least that's what I'm going to assume they're going to be associated with. So sign me up for this group. It seems like they have everything you could possibly need. Someone who has potential to be a top guy, someone who has potential to challenge for heavyweight championships, Karrion Kross, that dominant tag team that you need to hold tag team championships, the Authors of Pain. You got the eye candy. I guess she's not really the best on promos, but we've seen her in the ring before in the past. She can wrestle. Scarlett, who just her being there, her presence alone is a net positive, trust me. And then Paul Ellering, the wise, experienced coach, if you will, for this group. So that's really what inspired me. Seeing this group, seeing how, I guess, strong they look out of the gate, just from a look standpoint, it's what kind of made me want to do this Stack 'em Up Saturday and, talk about some of the better factions that are going on right now in the WWE. Continuing on here, we get Ashanti the Adonis asking Nick Aldis for an opportunity backstage. He's expressing, just his lack of direction is a way to look at it. He really doesn't know what to expect, and Nick Aldis expresses that he's always been a believer in Ashanti the Adonis, and he's going to like what Nick Aldis has up his sleeve for Ashanti going forward. So kind of just keep an eye on that and see what that has planned. Also, just a little bit of another little side note. What happened to B-Fab joining Bobby Lashley? Hey, Bobby, can I talk to you real quick? Like, what happened there? I thought that we were supposed to get her joining that group. Maybe she's taking some time off. Maybe we're going to see that a little bit more. Maybe this is connected. Maybe, hold on a second, because of the presence of Scarlett and the Final Prayer attacking the Almighty Prophets, is what I'll call them for now, maybe that's what's going to lead to B-Fab showing her value while they're getting jumped. They already got jumped tonight. What if they get jumped again next week? and Scarlett gets involved, and now there's a woman putting her hands on Lashley and the Street Profits, and out comes B-Fab. I think that could work out. I think that could be a natural, organic way for her to join the group and not just be handed a position like, no, you came out and you had our back, even though it was just Scarlett that you're taking out, but still, it's a thought that counts. It's your motives and your loyalty that we're going to, focus on here and have you join our group. And maybe they could just sprinkle in Ashanti in the group as well. Why not? It just seems like if that's the direction that they're going to go here, which is more, bigger numbered faction, not just 2 or 3, but more so like 5, it would make sense to add B-Fab and Ashanti. If they're not doing anything and they're signed by the company, why not see what they can do? Let's squeeze that fruit and get as much juice out of it as we possibly can. The last thing before the main event that we'll talk about here is Butch and Tyler Bate having a tag team match between Pretty Deadly, and obviously Butch and Tyler Bate get the win following a double Tyler driver. But we didn't know who the tag team partner was going to be for Butch. He came out first. It was going to be a mystery. I really wasn't sure. Ended up being Tyler Bate, who they have a lot of history together from their time at NXT. So, yeah, this is a phenomenal addition. If he's coming up to the main roster, it could have just been hey, I need a favor here. I need a tag team partner. Tyler Bate steps up. But if we do see more of him on the main roster, I think that he'd be a phenomenal addition. He has something to him that I saw this match, and I definitely want to see more. But moving on now to the main event, AJ Styles versus LA Knight and Randy Orton. Now, to start the show, Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman show up. Tinted windows. We already know exactly who it was going to be. It was Roman Reigns. And they're immediately asked about The Rock's subtle call-out on Monday Night Raw. They both just pretty much laugh it off. They're just saying, yeah, The Rock, right? Like, that's hilarious. They don't even address it. And then Roman Reigns really doesn't make another appearance throughout the rest of the show until this main event when we're getting a pretty entertaining match. I will say, this triple threat, AJ Styles, LA Knight, Randy Orton, a number 1 contenders match for a shot at Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, means the world. Like, this is an absolute, career-making match for some of these guys, especially LA Knight. If he were to get this win and go get an opportunity at Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, just think about his 1-year rise from that Mountain Dew Pitch Black match against Bray Wyatt last year at the Royal Rumble, all the way to being in the championship match going up against, obviously, Roman Reigns, who had a very, very big Royal Rumble last year when you look at the whole Sami Zayn turn. So the Royal Rumble is always a big spot. It's big for the build when you look at going towards WrestleMania. So expect 100% The Rock and Roman Reigns to have a face-to-face moment at the Royal Rumble. I mean, that's just kind of what my gut's telling me right now. And that's a little bit of a sidebar. But as far as this match goes, there was a couple near falls. I mean, like I said, it was a great match. Whoever produced this one, I really want to, shake their hand because I love a good near fall. The referee went down for the 3 count whenever LA Knight had countered an RKO into a BTF or BFT. I apologize. Bam, he had the pinfall there. Randy Orton was almost pinned. AJ Styles physically stops the referee from bringing his hand down for 3. So right there, the match goes on. And then whenever AJ Styles has an opportunity to pin Randy Orton later in the match, LA Knight's the one that yanks Charles Robinson out of the ring and the pinfall stops. And other than that, there was no close calls. We kind of hit a little bit of a stalemate with all 3 competitors on the ground. And then bam, you hear Roman Reigns' music hit. He comes out to the ring. He sends Solo. He sends Jimmy Uso. We get a little bit of a 3-on-3 brawl here. And obviously, Roman Reigns ends the match. It seems like he gets the upper hand because he doesn't. He, ends the night on his feet. But Nick Aldis, who was right there, he actually, like we mentioned, butting heads, a rivalry going forward that we can focus on, Aldis and Roman Reigns. He goes up to Paul Heyman and he says, look, congratulations, you just earned your champion a fatal 4-way match at the Royal Rumble. So now at the Royal Rumble, we're not only going to get Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul for the United States Championship, we're not only going to get the 2 Royal Rumble matches, the men's and the women's, but we're also going to get a fatal 4-way for the WWE Undisputed Universal Championship with 3 worthy contenders. How is Roman Reigns going to win this one? Has he been tested with a fatal 4-way yet? I don't believe so. The triple threat at WrestleMania with Daniel Bryan and Edge, that is probably the only multi-competitor match that he's been in when you talk about title defenses. So I think this one's going to be again, I tip my hat to the producer here because the ending might have been deflating because we didn't get an outright winner for a no disqualification match. That seems kind of weird to end it in a no contest. But I'll take that if it means we get the Fatal 4-Way. It's a nice, it's something fresh for Roman Reigns that we really haven't seen yet. And I think that, that's about as strong of a match that you can get for the Royal Rumble. Almost as strong as that announce table that they had there on SmackDown that took 3 people trying to go through it and they failed to do so. So I'm all for this episode of SmackDown. Everything that happened with the storyline development, everything that happened with the matches and their outcomes. It was just an all-in-all great episode of SmackDown. So I definitely, if you didn't already get a chance to watch it, go back and watch it because we're officially on the road to WrestleMania, baby. It is 2024. We're close to the Royal Rumble, and you guys already know once we're at the Rumble, we're cooking with gas. But anywho, let's go ahead and get into the Stack 'em Up Saturday, shall we? This is the fifth week that I've done this in a row now. I've definitely enjoyed doing it. It's fun. It's entertaining. Definitely message me on X at Michael5Ritter. Message me on the Discord chat, Instagram at MichaelRitter5, or you can find my email one way or another. I'll definitely get in touch with you if you want to get a hold of me that way. But I like doing this. I like hearing the feedback. I like the suggestions. Let me know if there's anything you guys want me to do next week for the Stack 'em Up Saturday. So let's quickly go through this one, shall we? The top 5 current factions in WWE. A couple honorable mentions that I'll say just because, they do deserve some credit, but they're not going to make the top 5. The OC, that's one of them. We saw Michin. She did her little too sweet today. Obviously, she got the Good Brothers with them. Without AJ Styles, that faction is about as entertaining as paint drying. So they're not going to make the top 5. But with someone like AJ Styles, I think they got some legs to stand on. Santos' group right now, I don't really know what it's called with Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. So once we get a name for them, I think they'll probably have a pretty good 24 as well. Definitely better than LWO with a question mark because I don't know if they're even a group still. We saw Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro make an appearance tonight. Zelina Vega really hasn't gone anywhere, but still, without Santos and with that group pretty much inflating, Rey Mysterio being put on the shelf because of his knee surgery, I don't necessarily know that I can put them in the top 5 here. So the honorable mention groups are LWO, the unnamed Santos Escobar group, and the OC. So let's get into the top 5. At number 5, right out the gate, they've made one appearance, and bam, they're in the top 5 in my personal opinion, and that is the Final Prayer. That's what I'm going to call them right now. Hopefully we'll get a name for them soon, or we'll at least get an announcement what their name is, but that's the shirt that Karrion Kross was wearing. So I feel like that was probably done strategically, and that could end up being the name of their group. Number 4, the Almighty Prophets, another group that I need an official name for. But if they're starting to grow, if they get BFAB, and we continue to see them get put in meaningful programs, I think this Hill group could be in for a pretty big 2024 as well when you think about, some of the other groups that were mentioned here. They've already had a couple months under their belt, so we've already seen some steps in the right direction. Number 3, this might come as a surprise, but I'm putting the Bloodline. They've lost a lot of juice. Who is the Bloodline anymore? Is it Roman Reigns showing up once every 6 weeks? Is it Paul Heyman? Is he the leader of the group with Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso, and they're supposed to carry this group? No, this faction is lucky that they're even making the top 3 right now. So, because I think that obviously the Final Prayer is going to have a pretty nice little road to Mania, and then I think the Almighty Prophets could have an argument for jumping this group. But out of respect, and because they do still feature Roman Reigns, and when he's here, this faction is involved in all of the important storylines, you have to give them a top 3 spot. At number 2, and this one was pretty much back and forth. I could have easily put this group at number 1, but I'm putting Damage Control. They have a lot of credibility right now. They have a lot of legit wrestlers. I think that the Kabuki Warriors being in that group, the veteran leadership of Bayley, you got Dakota Kai, just her coming back from her injury. Eventually she'll be cleared for in-ring competition as well. Obviously, Io Sky in there, she's as legit as it gets. This group I feel like they've been having a slow burn storyline themselves, and it doesn't get the attention that a slow burn storyline like the Bloodline has done over the last couple of years. But Damage Control is a very legit group. They have very talented wrestlers in the group, and I'll be honest, I enjoy whenever I see them involved in any type of storyline, and I'm glad that the championship is attached to them right now as well. But speaking of championships being attached to certain groups, the number 1 group, guys, let's talk about it. It's the Judgment Day. Whether you love them, whether you hate them, whether you're indifferent, this group, numbers don't lie. They have Rhea Ripley. She's one of the most popular wrestlers in the entire company. Finn Balor, he's another AJ Styles. He's another Seth Rollins. He's another Daniel Bryan. When you talk about just pure classic wrestler at its finest. Obviously, Damian Priest, Senor Money in the Bank, who's been on a rise here lately, and he's probably one of the most improved wrestlers when you look at where they started 2023 to where they ended 2023. And obviously, the Heat magnet, Dominic Mysterio, who's on his way to being one of the best heels in the company, especially once he gets his feet wet. And then, guys, are we going to skip out on R-Truth? The real backbone of this group, the straw that stirs the drink. This group right here is everything that you want in a group, that you want in a heel faction. They are a little bit overexposed. I will admit that. They're involved in damn near everything. Some of their story or some of their promos, I apologize, are a little bit redundant, a little bit repetitive. But, I mean, whenever you get so much airtime on a 3-hour show, week in, week out, you're going to seem a little bit copy and paste from time to time. But, I mean, I will say the Judgment Day, you have to give them their respect. Shout out to Edge for being the person who birthed it. But he must have put it up for adoption or something. And the faction went to a family that fed it very well and took care of it and raised it up to be one of the best factions in the WWE. And that might not have been the best analogy, but hey, here we are. I will recap my top 5. The Final Prayer at number 5, which is Karrion Kross and his group with the Authors of Pain. The Almighty Prophets speaks for itself. We'll see if they get an actual name here going forward. Number 3, The Bloodline. Number 2, Damage Control. And number 1, The Judgment Day. So that is my top 5 current factions in the WWE. Let me know which factions you feel like are the best of all time. I would love to hear it. But, other than that, guys, I do want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the SmackDown Review, the New Year's Revolution edition. We will be back next week. I already got some matches announced for next week, so SmackDown is going to be, obviously, an entertaining show. However, I may not be here. I'm going to see what's going on. I'm going to see the schedule, see what happens. But a little bit of a spoiler, a little peek behind the curtain. I'm going on another trip January 11th, which is next Thursday. I'm going to Dallas to see Boy Meets World. The group there, Boy Meets World. Never mind, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I will be here because I could just record it on Saturday whenever I get back. So, forget I even said that. But remember, I'm going to see Boy Meets World. Pod Meets World live in Dallas. Going to be a great show, a great experience. I've been watching Boy Meets World since the late 90s, early 2000s. So this is a great show for me. Without a doubt, a bucket list thing. I went to my first Celtics game, although we lost. I've already gone to see the Falcons play time and time again. At one point, going to Atlanta was the biggest bucket list on my, agenda. I went to see a Kiss concert. So I'm knocking off things that I've always wanted to do. And this is just another one on the list. So thank you guys so much for listening. Have a damn good rest of your weekend. Walk passionately in the direction of your dreams. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.